The Chinese government has asked its carriers to stop taking delivery of Boeing aircraft in the meantime.
What happens when the company that once symbolized America's industrial might decides it can no longer survive on American soil? What happens when the very policies that promise to protect American jobs instead trigger an exodus of one of its greatest icons? Boeing, the name behind the planes that carried soldiers into battle, that built the dream of American flight, is shutting down 5 major U.S. factories, eliminating over 14,000 jobs in a matter of days. And the most staggering part? Boeing is pointing directly to the trade policies born during the Trump administration as the catalyst. This isn't just a corporate restructuring. It's a rupture in the heart of American manufacturing, a warning shot to every industry still clinging to domestic production. But Boeing's story is only the beginning. What led to this seismic shift, and what does it mean for the future of American industry? The answers are more unsettling than you might expect. The announcement hit like a thunderclap. Boeing revealed it will close 5 of its largest factories across the United States, displacing over 14,000 workers almost overnight. In cities like Everett, Washington, Charleston, South Carolina, and St. Louis, Missouri, stunned communities are grappling with a harsh new reality. Entire neighborhoods, built around the promise of stable, well-paying manufacturing jobs, are now facing the unimaginable. Mark, a third-generation machinist in Everett whose grandfather built B-17 bombers during World War II, must now tell his children that the American dream their family fought for has crumbled. Sarah, an accounting clerk in Charleston who just committed to a 30-year mortgage based on Boeing's public promises to remain in the U.S., faces financial ruin. This isn't just about numbers on a corporate balance sheet. It's about schools that depend on Boeing's tax revenue, small businesses that rely on Boeing's employees, and entire communities now on the verge of collapse. But as devastating as these closures are, they're only the tip of a much larger crisis. The very policies intended to protect American manufacturing have, in a cruel twist, accelerated its decline. Boeing points squarely to the tariffs imposed during the Trump administration as the breaking point. These sweeping tariffs raised the cost of essential materials like aluminum, specialized steel, and rare earth elements by as much as 25%. Boeing executives had warned lawmakers repeatedly that these tariffs would create an impossible financial burden, rendering them unable to compete globally. Their pleas were ignored. As Boeing struggled, its European and Chinese competitors surged ahead, able to source materials at lower costs and offer better pricing to customers. Contracts worth billions began slipping through Boeing's fingers. Foreign airlines and governments opted for Airbus and Comac planes, deeming American-made aircraft too expensive. Once seen as a bold move to bring jobs back home, the tariffs have instead sparked a manufacturing exodus. A sobering reality is setting in. America's own policies have undermined its industries. But the real economic aftershock was still to come. The loss of 14,000 direct Boeing jobs is only the first domino. For every position at Boeing, experts estimate that up to 4 additional jobs exist in the vast network of suppliers and contractors. That means as many as 70,000 American jobs are now at risk, stretching from machine shops in Ohio to software developers in California and textile manufacturers in Georgia. Entire supply chains that had depended on Boeing for decades are now left scrambling for survival. Schools, hospitals, local businesses, even property markets are bracing for the ripple effects. In Everett, property values are projected to plummet by as much as 30% overnight. Police departments are preparing for potential social unrest as families face joblessness and financial devastation. Once again, policies designed in distant political offices are crushing local communities. One former Boeing worker summed up the anguish, saying, "We've been used as pawns in a political game we never agreed to play." But as catastrophic as these community impacts are, an even darker consequence is looming just beneath the surface. Beyond the devastating economic fallout lies an even more alarming risk: national security. Boeing isn't just a commercial airplane manufacturer. It plays a critical role in U.S. defense, building fighter jets, military transport planes, and key components for missile defense systems. With production shifting overseas, the Pentagon faces an unsettling dilemma. One senior defense official, speaking anonymously, described the situation as potentially the most significant blow to American military readiness in decades. The prospect of sensitive aerospace technologies and manufacturing capabilities migrating beyond U.S. borders is sending shockwaves through Washington. This isn't just about planes. It's about the very foundation of American defense capabilities. Analysts warn that once this knowledge base and infrastructure are gone, they may be impossible to rebuild domestically. As decision-makers scramble for emergency solutions, the realization is clear. This crisis wasn't unforeseen. Boeing had warned for years, but politics drowned out the warnings. Still, the reverberations of Boeing's decision are only beginning to be felt. As Boeing packs up its operations, Wall Street is already asking, who's next? Industry giants like General Electric, Lockheed Martin, and Caterpillar are quietly running their own numbers, evaluating whether they too can continue manufacturing in America under the same punishing cost pressures. Meanwhile, global competitors are wasting no time. Airbus has ramped up production across Europe, while China's Comac, long struggling to gain a foothold in the market, now sees a once-in-a-generation opening. European governments are actively courting Boeing suppliers, offering lucrative tax incentives and regulatory flexibility to lure them across the Atlantic. Even as U.S. communities brace for impact, Chinese state media has gleefully declared this the beginning of the end of American industrial dominance. It's a chilling signal to every American manufacturer. If Boeing can't survive in the United States, who can? Once again, what was meant to be a protective measure has instead sparked a global realignment. But the deeper tragedy lies in the harsh message this sends to working families across America. The fallout from Boeing's exit goes far beyond economics and geopolitics. Middle-class families who built their lives around these factories now face impossible choices. Do they sell their homes before values crash? Do they pull their children out of school to relocate? Or do they spend precious savings to retrain for uncertain futures? These are the real, human stories buried beneath corporate headlines. Financial advisors report a surge in calls about bankruptcy and foreclosure. Mental health hotlines in affected communities are overwhelmed. As America debates policy failures, ordinary families are left grappling with the consequences in real time. Perhaps the most painful consequence of all is the growing division within these devastated communities. Laid-off workers and their families are torn between blaming Boeing leadership or the political establishment that set these events in motion. Anger and frustration now fracture neighborhoods that once thrived on shared purpose. As trust in institutions erodes, communities find themselves isolated and uncertain about what lies ahead. Economists, too, have warned that without a coherent industrial strategy, Boeing will not be the last. Other major manufacturers are quietly asking themselves the same haunting question. Can we still afford to build in America? The Boeing crisis marks more than a loss of jobs. It signals a dangerous crossroads for American manufacturing. The tariffs introduced under the Trump administration, intended to protect domestic industries, have instead triggered an exodus that may reshape the global industrial landscape for decades. Boeing's overseas facilities are expected to be fully operational within 18 months, leaving American communities racing against time to reinvent themselves or face collapse. The Pentagon scrambles to secure critical defense production, while workers sit at kitchen tables confronting impossible choices. The core question remains: is this the wake-up call the nation needed, or the beginning of the end for U.S. industrial dominance? If Boeing's decision doesn't force a fundamental reevaluation of trade, labor, and industrial policies, what will? What do you think? Can American manufacturing still be saved? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters.